Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today I'm going to be talking about Skyward Sword HD on the Switch, which is only the second Zelda game I've gotten on the Switch, as I also have Tears of the Kingdom as well. Breath of the Wild I have on the Wii U. So Skyward Sword is not a game I've ever really been fond of. I had the original Wii release, and I didn't get far into it. Part of my biggest problem is the motion controls. I don't really have very good hand-eye coordination. I have a lazy eye. I've always had problems with hand-eye coordinated stuff. In the original version on the Wii, I could never get past Girahim the first time you fight him, toward the beginning of the game. I could never do it. And we're talking about someone who has beaten Zelda games many times. I've even beaten The Adventure of Link. The Adventure of Link is a better game than Skyward Sword, let me tell you right there. But I never could beat it. I ended up selling it and just wrote it off as I can't do it. I just physically can't do it. Accepted the fact that, I just wasn't coordinated enough to play it. And then this version came out, and one of the things that immediately caught my eye was the option to play with a more traditional button layout, which is a huge improvement and is definitely the way I play the game. Now, you can't completely escape the fact that this was a game designed around motion controls, even with the button layout. I think it was a clever idea what they did with the sword, mapping it to the C-stick to mimic your swings with the way you press the button. But I do think what they did with the sword mechanics is, so to speak, a double-edged sword. There are times it's frustrated and you might hit the C-stick not in the direction you mean to go, which is frustrating when you're battling a boss when you have to swing in a certain way, like one of the double Stalfos, for example. And that can be frustrating. But it still has a unique feel to it. Like, while, again, I find it a double-edged sword, I did find it enjoyable, combat with the sword. It was definitely different, and once I adjusted to it, I liked it well enough. The camera is a little frustrating. Having to hold the L button to move the camera is a little frustrating. I get why it's like that, but it's still a little frustrating. I got more used to it as I progressed through the game. Sometimes using items is a little problematic, especially if you're in intense moments, because if you hold down the ZR button, you'll accidentally bring up your menu when you're trying to just use an item. I really struggled with this in certain places, especially the boss, where you have to use the bombs, and it's the little ball, and you have to bomb him and make him roll down the hill. I freaking hated that boss. And part of it was just the mechanics of the controller, and again, not being the most coordinated person in the world. It was a bad combination, and a lot of times I just could not get the game to do what I was trying to get it to do, and I got killed there a few times, mainly more because of controller frustration than anything else. So it still gets problematic sometimes, even with the button layout, but it's still certainly miles better than the motion controls. The art style I like well enough. It's not my favorite. It's kind of a combination of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, where it has a more serious models, but with a more colorful look like Wind Waker does. It looks alright. I prefer Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, their looks, over this. And I much prefer how they refined it better in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Those games look gorgeous. But this art style is still good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I prefer the art style of those other games. I love the cartoony look of Wind Waker. It's a gorgeous game. But I love the serious, dark look of Twilight Princess as well. Twilight Princess really does feel like a sequel to Ocarina of Time more so than any other game. But it's still fine here. I enjoy the look of it. It's just one of my least favorite of the 3D Zeldas, but still looks good. The items are nice. I do like the items you get in the game with the grapple hook shot and everything. The bow and arrow is utilized well. The controllers, I don't use gyro for those. I just aim manually, and that works pretty well. The story is actually really good. I do enjoy the actual plot and the story a lot. This being at the beginning of the timeline, kind of giving us an origin story for everything. I do really enjoy the story to this game. I like this version of Zelda, especially early on. She just seems to have good personality. And again, she's not really a princess here, which I like too. She acts very different, more carefree, which I like. Now, she doesn't really get a lot to do at the end of the game. She does kind of get reduced to the damsel in distress, which is a little frustrating. And she just doesn't have enough personality toward the end of the game. But at the beginning of the game, I really like what they did with her. This version of Link is fine. Link's always kind of a blank slate, since he's kind of, they want you to, project yourself onto him. But I enjoy him well enough. I like him well enough. The guest characters on the island, or the other people who populate the island, are fine. About the same as most Zelda characters. Fee is not as bothersome. I do like a lot of the changes made. I've watched videos comparing the original Wii version with the HD version. And Fee is not bothersome in this version, which I like. I do enjoy a lot of the changes made to the HD version. Just a little quality of life improvements. And it makes Fee a very tolerable companion. Not near as good as, was it Mina, or whatever her name is from Twilight Princess, but still, she's fine. Boss battles, I didn't care for a lot of them. The crab one, which you have to do twice, is fine. Girahim is just annoying, especially the first 2 times you fight him. He's just kind of annoying. Again, doing the motion control thing, I really have problems with that. I thought when you fight him the last time is very creative, when you're having to knock him off. I thought that was pretty neat and impressive. And I like Girahim slowly transforming to look more like Fi and finding out he's kind of the essence of Demise's sword. The actual final battle against Demise I enjoyed. It was a little tricky at places, especially because my sword did not want to raise up to do lightning strikes very well, or skyward strikes right there at the end. But I liked that boss battle. I like the fact that the final temple isn't connected to the boss battle, that it's separate, that you can refill your health, that there's a gap between the final castle or dungeon and the final boss. I enjoyed. It wasn't nearly as much of a headache as some of the other final bosses and final adventures. The gauntlets you have to go through sometimes for those. I like that. I found Demise to be difficult without being as difficult as some final bosses, and definitely not as tedious as some final bosses for a game that I think is overall very tedious. We'll get to that. But I like Demise as a final boss. He was hard without making me want to just scream. Like, I managed to kill him on my first try, which I liked. I was getting a little frustrated right at the end, but I managed to do that. So I like him as a final boss. The actual final castle, the Skykeep, I did not like that one. I did not. I'm not going to lie. I used a little internet walkthrough because I just found it irritating and annoying. Stuff like that just annoys me. I didn't find it challenging. I just found it irritating. I find a lot of this game to just be tedious. If I had to describe this game in one word, it would be tedious. I just found myself getting constantly irritated because there's so many side quest like stuff that feels like part of the main quest that's there just to stretch it out. All the little things I have to do. Go find all of my little creatures and talk to them and make sure they're okay. All the things I had to do to awaken the dragons and get the dragons telling me the songs. The running around when the water filled up, having to find all the little fish. Having to run through the gauntlet stealthily without my weapons and regather my weapons. The little plant one didn't bother me much. I figured that out quick, having to take the little plant seed and move it to the seal. I actually clicked to that really quick. The Shadow Realms shit, or the Silent Realm stuff, oh my god. I hated that. A couple of them I managed to do on my own. A couple of them I looked online for quicker ways to do that. I hated the Silent Realm stuff where you're having to stealthily grab stuff and fill out the little branch. It's much less annoying in Twilight Princess when you're having to do it. When you're having to collect the little seeds of light in Twilight Princess. Much less annoying than here, where if you get hit one time, you have to start. I wanted to scream. And there's just a lot of that. Little things where I'm like, more? This? Really? Seriously? There was a lot of that in this game where I was just like, oh gosh, at the beginning, learning how to do the sky, having to fly your bird, and then having to race Goose at the beginning and grab the thing. I hated that. I much prefer the Skyloft with the button controls, of course, but I still found it tedious. Also, the overworld when you're flying around on the Skyloft is so boring. I much prefer either the Hylian Fields in other games or the sea in Wind Waker. The Skyloft one was just uninteresting. I just found the game tedious. It's not bad. I don't hate the game, but I don't enjoy the game a lot either. I'm glad I finally got to play through it. I'm glad I've beaten it. I was enjoying myself on some level, and I get a sense of accomplishment at getting it done. Again, I really like the story. The music is really good, and I like some of the characters as well. Groose is a really cool character. I really like his character arc in this. I like Impa and the old lady. I figured that out, the little twist with Impa and the old woman. I had that figured out fairly quickly, I think. I enjoyed that as well. I do like some of the dungeons are neat and creative. Sometimes they're a little irritating, but they're neat and creative, especially the with the ancient cistern. That's creative. And its boss battle is interesting, a little frustrating at times, but still a really neat boss battle. That one's actually pretty creative. There's some creative boss battles in there. The one in the Thunderdome where you got to spin and free the guy from the parasite, that one's okay. It's a little annoying, but not bad. So the boss battles are hit and miss. Also, I think the one on the pirate ship would have been cooler if he'd just been designed better. He looks a little too cartoony and silly. If he'd been designed to look darker and more evil, the one with the tentacles, I think that one would have been better. The actual fight itself is okay, but I just think the creature's not designed as well as it could have been. So all in all, it's okay. I'm not quite sure where I'd rank it. It's better than Majora's Mask. I hate Majora's Mask intensely. But I much prefer, like, Wind Waker, Skyward, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Ocarina. Much better if we're talking about 3D Zeldas. Probably my least favorite 3D Zelda besides Majora's Mask, because Majora's Mask is just garbage. Now, another part of Skyward Sword was I did enjoy some of the locations. Now, I didn't really care for the Elden part, like the volcano lava stuff. I didn't really like that area. But I tend to not like lava areas in Zelda games to begin with, even in Ocarina. The kind of Death Mountain lava stuff I never cared for. So the Elden area didn't do much for me. Plus, I hated doing the part when you have to regather all your gear. But I didn't care for that. But I did like the forest part with the sealed grounds and the forest temple. I liked that area. It's designed well. It's pleasant to look at. I enjoyed running around it. Even when it fills up with water, while I didn't like having to collect the fish, I did enjoy the swimming around and looking at it. It looked nice. So I thought that area was designed well. And then I really liked the desert a lot, especially the gimmick of using the time stones to, get around, having to make things look like they were in the past to basically advance, use the rail cars. I thought that was neat. Because I found it a fascinating concept, especially the ship when you're driving the boat on the sea ocean and you're using the time stone to turn the area around you into actual water instead of sand. That was fantastic. I loved that. Even the bit trying to find the hidden ship I liked, which I love that dungeon, by the way. So I really enjoyed the time stone mechanic and getting to see those areas in the past. For some reason, just the concept of that I loved a lot. So I tended to really enjoy running around in that area, even if it could be a little frustrating at times when you first get to the mine where it opens up. But once I really got playing in it, I really enjoyed it. And the ship part I always loved. I loved running around on the ship. I also really liked that dungeon, the dungeon on the boat. I liked a lot. Again, the boss battle didn't do much for me, but the actual dungeon I enjoyed. I also liked a couple of the puzzles where you had to change it from being filled with sand to not being filled with sand. There's a couple rooms there where you had to do puzzles. Those were creative and interesting, and I enjoyed them. Some of the dungeons were really good. Some of them were not. I liked the ancient cistern. And I liked the boat one a lot. And I feel like there's one I'm forgetting I enjoyed. And then some of them were just kind of not as interesting. Some of them were cleverly designed. So I just didn't personally get into them. Sometimes, again, just the button layout frustrated me. Even though I prefer it over the motion controls, it still caused me problems. And then I didn't really care, again, for the Skykeep final castle. I just found it extremely tedious and very uninteresting. I found it hard for all the wrong reasons, not challenging as in difficult, just challenging as in annoying. It felt way too much like a puzzle. But again, some of the boards were good in it. It was a nice combination of different things. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. For me personally, I also really like Skyloft Island. While I don't enjoy the skies overall and traveling between them, I did like the actual Skyloft Island itself, your main hub town. I thought it was designed really well, and I found it really enjoyable. It was easy for me to navigate. I liked the little music there. I enjoyed interacting with the NPCs, and I thought it had a really good layout. And I also like how it fits in at the end with the temple coming down to the ground by the sealed grounds. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's really my thoughts on Skyward Sword. It's fine. A little irritating at times, and I did not get as into it as I did others. Like some Zelda games, a lot of 3D Zelda games have taken me years to get into. Wind Waker took me a long time to appreciate, but now I love it. I have the original version and the HD version. Love it. Twilight Princess also took me a while just because so much of the beginning of the game is tutorial. It took me a long time to get into it, plus the first version I had was the Wii version, and again, the motion controls for it frustrated me. But the Wii U version of it's fantastic, and I absolutely love Twilight Princess now. Breath of the Wild I bought in 2017, and it was so drastically different, I couldn't really adjust to it. And so I sat on it until like 2022, when I went back to it in 2022 and ended up loving it. Ended up loving Tears of the Kingdom as well. I got Tears of the Kingdom a few months ago. Absolutely loved it. But for some reason, Skyward Sword just isn't as good. There's just a lot of filler in there that doesn't do a lot for me personally. So I want to know what you think of Skyward Sword HD. Comment down below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to click the link button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to check that out. There's a link to that down in the description below. Link to the Amazon wish list is down there as well. P.O. box is down there if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. All that fun stuff. Want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Sam Venning, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.